The WHO has taken some criticism for some of their statements and their speed in January. I think most of that is misplaced and misdirected. So what's important to understand is that WHO's leadership are not making it up as they go along in a situation like this. They are following the international health regulations. So the international health regulations are a treaty negotiated by WHO's member states that both set expectations for member states and how they will share information with the WHO and with each other during a novel outbreak, and then also provide authorities to WHO and limits on WHO's authority on how WHO, the agency, can engage with and share information in that kind of a situation. And so, one of the really important elements to the international health regulations is that they put most of the reporting responsibility on the member state, and they give WHO very little authority to investigate or compel information sharing. So if a country shares information in an incomplete manner, WHO does not have the authority to to call them out on that in a public way. They do not have the authority to share the information and say, but we think it's wrong. And they have to share what they're given by the member states. And if they disagree or have questions about that, then their first port of call is to go back to the member state and privately clarify that with them. And so that puts WHO in a very difficult position when they have a situation like they had in January, where China was reporting, but they were reporting what we now know to be, I think, if we're charitable, incomplete information. Um, Certainly, in retrospect, not fully correct information, not fully capturing the scope of what was happening inside China. But in that situation, WHO's tools and authorities to actually point something like that out are negligible. And that is because that's how member states have established the IHRs, and that's how they have over the years governed WHO. Member states could choose to set up WHO as a very hard-nosed, very independent and autonomous organization with coercive power over member states and a unilateral investigative authority. And a lot of the criticism from the United States seems to implicitly assume that all that exists. It doesn't. WHO does not have that kind of authority because member states, including the US, have not chosen to establish that kind of an authority. Um, and so I think that's the context in which it's important to see some of WHO's comments in January. So they were heavily dependent on what they were getting from China in order to be able to share anything with the world. And if you look at the timeline, they were very prompt in sharing onwards what they were getting from China. They, in I think some subtle ways within the scope, kind of the margin that they had, the latitude that they had available to them, they did signal where information was perhaps incomplete or not yet definitive. And um, they first heard confirmation from China of the outbreak on the 31st of December. They were not able to actually get a team into Wuhan until 3 weeks later. And that was because China was slow in allowing them to send in a team. And so they sent a team in on the 20th and 21st of January. And on the 22nd of January, WHO formally confirmed that human-to-human transmission was happening. Now, it would have been great to get that nugget of information a couple weeks earlier, but the bottleneck there was China. It was not WHO.